It starts the way a lot of neighborhood crises start. Not with sirens, not with breaking news, but with one guy reading a local paper like it personally insulted his entire bloodstream. Archie Bunker is staring at an article about local clubs discriminating, and you can practically hear his blood pressure negotiating its own union contract. In Archie's mind, the newspaper isn't reporting a story. It's launching an attack on his dignity, his private club, and, most importantly, his precious tax break. Because yes, in Archie's world, morality is optional, but property taxes are a sacred text. The whole mess begins when a reporter calls Archie and pumps him for information. Archie, being Archie, doesn't realize he's talking to a reporter. He thinks he's doing what he always does, asking basic questions to protect the quality of the club membership. The problem is that Archie's definition of basic questions sounds like a checklist from a time capsule that should have stayed buried. He treats those questions like they're normal, like they're as harmless as asking somebody if they take sugar in their coffee. Meanwhile, everyone else in the room reacts the way normal humans react when they realize someone has been speaking like that out loud to strangers, with horror, disbelief, and the quiet panic of people imagining their names printed in tomorrow's paper. Mike, Archie's son-in-law, the permanent thorn in Archie's side and the unofficial Department of Reality, tries to explain the obvious. If the club is excluding people based on who they are, that's discrimination, and it isn't just a bad look. It can come with consequences. Archie's response is basically, that's not discrimination. That's being particular, which is the sort of logic that only works if you also believe gravity is just being picky about who gets to float. Then Mike drops the bomb that makes Archie truly pay attention. If the club discriminates, it could lose its property tax break on the clubhouse. That's the moment Archie's face changes. Not because he suddenly discovers compassion, but because the word tax has entered the conversation. You can almost see the gears turning. Archie can tolerate being called outdated. Archie can tolerate arguing at the dinner table until the meatloaf starts filing complaints. But he cannot tolerate paying more money. That's where his principles become flexible, like a cheap plastic straw. And because Archie is Archie, he doesn't just worry quietly. He escalates. A meeting is called with the club guys, and they show up at Archie's house like it's a summit meeting of men who all think they're the smartest person in Queens. They're angry about the article, worried about being picketed, and terrified about money. Archie, being both proud and defensive, tries to spin it as a media smear job, because if there's one thing Archie believes in, it's that the problem is never Archie. It's always them. The meeting becomes a comedy of panic. The guys are torn between wanting the club to stay exactly the same and wanting the trouble to go away. Archie proposes a solution that is less about justice and more about optics. Bring in somebody different. Not because they truly want change, but because they want to look changed long enough for the heat to die down. Archie's pitch is basically, we open the door just a crack, the pressure goes away, we keep the tax break, and nobody bothers us for decades. It's the kind of plan you come up with when your moral compass is a decorative item you keep in a drawer. Then Archie tries to be clever, too clever. He suggests bringing in one person who checks multiple boxes at once. In Archie's mind, it's efficiency. In everyone else's mind, it's a sign that Archie's brain is attempting advanced math while still struggling with basic empathy. The target recruit is Solomon Jackson, a co-worker from the plant, someone Archie knows through work connections. Archie tries to arrange the whole thing like a diplomatic dinner. Food from different places, certain drinks, a whole performance designed to act ordinary, while being as unordinary as possible. And that's where the second layer of comedy hits. Archie trying to act normal is like a rooster trying to whisper. He can't do it. He makes awkward small talk, tries to compliment Solomon in a way that sounds like a compliment in his head but lands like a stumble, and keeps performing friendliness like it's a job he got assigned without training. Edith, as always, tries to smooth things over with warmth and sincerity. She's the human cushion in the room, constantly absorbing impacts so nobody else gets bruised. Solomon, however, is not there to be a prop. He's polite, sharp, and immediately understands what's happening. He listens as Archie and the guys awkwardly pitch the club like it's a vacation package with a suspicious fine print. You can join, but you don't have to show up. You can be a member, but you can stay away from everything. You can get mailers about events you're encouraged to avoid. It's the first time someone calls out what's really going on. They don't want Solomon as a person. They want Solomon as a shield. They want him as a headline-proof vest. Solomon plays it brilliantly. He pretends to accept, and the guys react like they've just solved world peace with a plate of ribs and an uncomfortable laugh. Archie acts triumphant, like he just invented fairness. The club guys relax, until Solomon adds the part they didn't plan for. He says he's going to bring in more members. Lots of members. Community members. People who will actually show up. People who will change the club for real. And suddenly the club guys look like men who ordered mild salsa and got handed a full-blast hot sauce with a warning label. Their faces freeze. Their confidence collapses. Archie tries to interrupt, but Solomon keeps going, painting a picture of an inclusive future that terrifies them, not because inclusion is bad, but because they never wanted real change. They wanted a loophole. Solomon ends by walking out with a perfect final twist. He exposes their motives without screaming, without insulting anyone, just by taking their idea seriously and turning it into exactly what it should have been all along. He leaves them stunned, embarrassed, and forced to face the fact that their plan wasn't smart. It was small. And the funniest part, if you can call it funny, is how quickly their principles evaporate when confronted with actual follow-through. That entire situation alone would be enough for most households to call it a week. But Archie's world does not run on enough. It runs on, and then another thing happens. Because just as the club drama cools off, life next door brings a fresh problem with fur, bark, and very strong opinions about where it's allowed to do its business. Barney Hefner's dog, Rusty, has decided Archie's front walk is his personal comment section. Archie is furious. Not mildly annoyed. Furious. He treats Rusty like the dog is running a campaign against him. Edith tries to be the voice of reason. Dogs will be dogs. Neighbors should be neighbors. But Archie takes it as a personal attack on his property, his pride, and his sense of cosmic order. In a move that feels like a bad idea even as it's happening, Archie decides to return the mess to Barney's porch. It's a petty act dressed up as justice. Edith begs him not to. Archie does it anyway, because Archie's sense of maturity is permanently stuck at "I'll show him." Barney naturally finds out. He storms over, offended and angry, and the two men do what they do best, argue like it's a competitive sport. Archie threatens a citizen's arrest, as if he's just been deputized by the universe. Barney mocks him. Edith tries to offer soup to calm things down because Edith's solution to conflict is always soup, warmth, and hope. And then the universe decides to escalate this neighbor fight into a full-scale neighborhood fiasco. Archie backs his cab into Barney's door and, in the process, Rusty ends up hurt. Not a joke injury. A real injury. A fractured leg. The tone shifts instantly. Archie, who can talk big all day, looks shaken when real harm happens. Edith rushes into caretaker mode. And the dog, who had been the center of petty conflict, suddenly becomes what he always was, a living creature caught between humans behaving badly. They rush Rusty to the vet. Archie complains about money because it's his reflex, but even Archie can't fully hide that he feels guilty. The vet bills are painful, and Archie reacts like his wallet has been personally assaulted. Still, there's a strange realism in how it plays. Archie doesn't suddenly transform into a saint. He stays Archie. He complains, he grumbles, he tries to rationalize. But he also can't erase the fact that he hurt the dog, even accidentally. Back at home, Archie panics about how Barney will react. Edith insists they must tell the truth. Archie wants to manage the truth, soften it, angle it, present it in a way that keeps Archie from getting blamed. It turns into a ridiculous attempt at warming Barney up, with Archie trying to talk around the issue like if he circles it enough times, it'll disappear. Barney shows up, and for a brief moment, it looks like maybe the men will choose peace. Barney even says he wants to forget the earlier fight. Archie tries to act gracious, too gracious, suspiciously gracious, like a man who just hid the broken vase and is now complimenting you on your excellent taste in home decor. But Archie can't help himself. He starts talking about how terrible it would be if a dog got hurt, and then tries to float the idea that a broken leg would be better than something worse, and then accidentally reveals the exact vet bill amount like a person who swears he didn't eat the cake while still chewing frosting. Barney's face changes. He realizes what happened. The truth hits. The confrontation is immediate. Barney is hurt, furious, and protective. Archie gets defensive. Edith, again, becomes the emotional firefighter, trying to keep the entire block from catching fire. When Rusty is finally brought out and Barney sees the splint, the anger becomes real. Not cartoon anger, but the kind of anger that comes from loving something that can't defend itself. And then, because comedy often lives right next to sincerity, something softens. Barney listens. Edith speaks plainly. The truth settles. Barney is still upset, but he also recognizes it was an accident. Archie, in his own clumsy way, tries to shift blame back onto Barney for letting Rusty roam freely. It's classic Archie. Even when he's wrong, he wants shared responsibility. But at least he's participating in a real conversation now, not a petty one. By the end, the conflict resolves with a weird, messy truce that feels exactly like these characters. Imperfect, noisy, but human. Barney considers getting Rusty a companion. Edith brightens at the idea. Archie, of course, immediately worries about puppies and chaos, and anything that might multiply in his vicinity. It's the final Archie touch. Even when trying to be supportive, he can't resist turning the moment into a new complaint. What ties these events together, club panic, dinner guest strategy, dog disaster, is that Archie is constantly bumping into the modern world and learning, in small humiliating bursts, that you can't manage. People like you manage taxes. You can't fix a public perception problem by recruiting a human being as a shield. And you can't treat your neighbors like enemies and expect nothing to break. Sometimes, literally. The humor here isn't cruel. It's observational. It's the humor of watching people try to control situations they don't understand with tools they're not qualified to use. Archie trying to sound welcoming while being awkwardly performative, club guys trying to dodge accountability by doing the bare minimum, two grown men escalating a dog complaint into a neighborhood feud, and then all of them being forced to grow up, at least a little, because real consequences show up. And the whole time, Edith stands there like the quiet truth of the neighborhood. Kindness isn't dramatic, but it holds the roof up. She doesn't win debates with clever words. She wins by being steady, by caring, by refusing to let pride become cruelty. If Archie is the storm, Edith is the sandbag. By the last beat, you're left with that classic feeling. Everybody survived, nobody became perfect, and the world moved 1 inch toward being better, mostly because someone finally stopped pretending and dealt with reality. Archie doesn't become a new man overnight. Barney doesn't become an angel. The club guys don't suddenly evolve. But the mask slips. The motives get exposed. The cost of stubbornness gets paid. And somewhere in there, there's a tiny lesson. If you want to avoid a mess, don't start one on your neighbor's porch. And if you want to avoid being called out for unfairness, don't try to solve it with a performance. People can tell, especially the ones you underestimate.